You get paid. For a few hours, maybe even a few days, you feel rich. Then the bills hit. Rent, food, transportation, subscriptions, debt, phone, insurance. A few things you bought because you could. And somehow, the money that looked like a lot on payday starts looking embarrassingly small. So you tell yourself the obvious answer, I just need to earn more. But here's the uncomfortable part. For a lot of people, earning more doesn't solve the problem because the moment the salary goes up, the definition of normal goes up with it. That is why someone can get a raise, feel financially better for a few months, and then end up wondering where the extra money went. And the dangerous part is that this usually doesn't happen through one huge purchase. It happens quietly. Imagine you make $3,000 a month. You get a raise and now you make $3,500. You think, great, I have an extra $500. So you upgrade your phone. Maybe you move somewhere a little nicer. You eat out a little more. You stop thinking twice about small purchases. None of these decisions feels financially disastrous. That's exactly why they're dangerous. The problem isn't the $20 purchase. It's that the $20 purchase becomes normal. Then another expense becomes normal. Then another. Eventually, the extra $500 doesn't feel like extra money anymore. It feels like the money you need just to maintain your life. And this is where most people misunderstand lifestyle inflation. It isn't necessarily about becoming extravagant. It can be much more ordinary than that. You used to cook because eating out felt expensive. Now you earn more, so ordering food feels reasonable. You used to keep your old phone for 4 years. Now replacing it every 2 years doesn't seem outrageous. You used to live in a place that was perfectly fine. Then your income increases, and suddenly the place that was fine starts feeling too small, too far away, or somehow beneath your new income. Nothing happened to your salary. Your baseline changed. Psychologists have studied how people adapt to changes in income and circumstances. One reason increases in income don't necessarily produce permanently higher satisfaction is that people adapt to new conditions. Research also suggests that social comparison matters. Over time, how you feel about your income can depend heavily on how it compares with other people, not simply how much more you're earning than before. And that creates a strange trap. You don't necessarily want more because you are greedy. You want more because your brain has already accepted the new level as normal. Yesterday's upgrade becomes today's expectation. And once something becomes an expectation, giving it up feels like losing something. That's why cutting expenses can feel much harder after your lifestyle has expanded. You're not just removing a purchase. You're removing something your brain now considers part of your life. There's another problem people overlook. Recurring expenses are much more dangerous than they look. A one-time purchase hurts once. A monthly payment follows you. A bigger apartment doesn't just cost more once. It raises the cost of your life every month. A more expensive car doesn't just mean a larger purchase. It can mean a larger payment, more insurance, more fuel, maintenance, and less flexibility. A subscription might be tiny. 10 subscriptions aren't. And when enough recurring expenses accumulate, your salary arrives already spoken for. That's why looking only at your monthly spending can be misleading. You need to look at how much of your future income you've already committed. Because financial freedom isn't just about how much money comes in. It's about how much of that money you are free to decide what to do with. The Federal Reserve's latest household survey gives a useful picture of why that margin matters. In 2025, 55% of U.S. adults said they had emergency savings sufficient to cover 3 months of expenses, while 30% said they could not cover 3 months through savings or other resources. The same report found that people who regularly had money left over at the end of the month were much more likely to have 3 months of emergency savings. That tells us something important. The goal isn't to make your salary look impressive. The goal is to create margin, and margin gives you options. If your entire income is consumed every month, a small emergency becomes a crisis. If you have margin, the same emergency becomes an inconvenience. So what do you actually do about this? The answer isn't to stop enjoying your money. That's unrealistic. And honestly, what's the point of earning more if your life can never improve? The better strategy is to make sure your lifestyle grows slower than your income. When your salary increases, don't immediately give the entire increase a job. Give part of it to your future first. Maybe your salary rises by $500. Instead of letting that entire $500 disappear into a better lifestyle, Decide in advance that some percentage goes towards savings, investing, or paying down expensive debt. Then you can spend the rest without feeling like you're punishing yourself. The key is that the decision happens before the money becomes psychologically available. Because once the money sits in your spending account, your brain starts finding reasons to spend it. And here's the rule I think is more useful than any complicated budgeting system. Don't ask, can I afford this? Ask, do I want this to become part of my normal life? That question is different. You might be able to afford the nicer apartment, but do you want a permanently higher monthly obligation? You might be able to afford the new car, but do you want the payment to follow you for years? You might be able to afford eating out every day, but do you actually value it enough to make it a permanent part of your spending? Because affordability is temporary, habits become permanent. And this is the part most people miss. A raise doesn't automatically make you wealthier. It gives you an opportunity to become wealthier. What you do with the gap between your old lifestyle and your new income determines whether that opportunity survives. If every raise becomes a bigger apartment, newer car, more subscriptions, more convenience, and more things you now consider necessary, your income can rise for years without giving you much more freedom. But if your income rises while your commitments rise more slowly, something different happens. The gap gets bigger, and that gap becomes savings, then investments, then an emergency fund, then eventually choices. The real upgrade isn't having a lifestyle that looks expensive. It's reaching a point where losing your paycheck wouldn't immediately destroy your life. That's when your salary stops disappearing. Not because you finally learned how to squeeze every last dollar out of your budget, but because you stopped allowing every increase in income to become an increase in your required lifestyle. More income is useful, but the freedom comes from what you don't immediately turn into another bill.